Yeah, you're wrong. Okay, so last time we were talking about perspective. Just a quick, I won't do a recap, but what I will say is sometimes you get multi-points of perspective, and when that happens, something else often happens as well, which is called foreshortening. So, if you can imagine that you are going to draw a picture of somebody with a whole heap of baked bean cans or something like that, and they trip and they're flying through the air. Each one of your cans in perspective is going to have a different point of perspective. So there's a point there, another vanishing point there, another vanishing point there. There's another can, that vanishing point's really close. This one's on the end a bit. So that vanishing point's way out the window there. So you've got multi-vanishing points. But your cylinder that's all tumbling around like that gives you another problem, which is foreshortening. And for those who are not quite sure what foreshortening is, it's basically when, I should grab a cylinder, shouldn't I? Okay, so if I look at the cylinder like that, what I'm seeing is pretty much a rectangle. I'm seeing the sides, I'm not seeing the ends. If I look at it like that, I'm seeing that. I'm seeing the end, I'm not seeing anything else, I'm just seeing a circle. If I look at it like this, now what I'm seeing is this. So this side here has been shortened to that. So did everybody get that? Just say out if you're not willing to explain it more clearly. You can do it with a pencil. With your pencil like that. Turn it till you see the end. When the end is just a circle. That way, it's a long rectangle. Somewhere in the middle, that length of the pencil is being shortened. So foreshortening, some people are looking perplexed, that's why I'm asking, does everyone get it?
So basically, depending on how we look at the cylinder or the pen, depending on what angle, it will look shorter, and that's the foreshortening.
Shorter or longer, so there you go.
Longer. Yep.
It's very short,
Yep.
and now it's very long.
Yep.
Everyone get that?
Yep.
Yep. Good. Just got to get that. That's the main concept you've got to get. That's the perception that we see it. Now the question is, how do you draw that? And gets back to what I was talking about in perspective. You cheat a little bit. Where do you cheat? I cheated there. What I did there was I made those lines come in a little bit to exaggerate that foreshortening. Now that works quite well if you're just drawing something out of your head. It works, in fact, it works at different things. The way perspective works is that, okay, if I stick my eye right up to it like that, it's actually even more perspective. If I have it out here, there's less perspective on it. The closer you are. You'll notice this in cameras. You get your phone cameras, got this little lens like that. It's what we call fisheye lens. It exaggerates all the perspectives. Whereas a wide angle lens won't. So a wide angle lens probably looks a little bit more accurate, whereas the extreme bringing it in, sorry, wide, got that wrong. Wide angle lens sort of stretches things out and makes things all wrong. Your telly from a long distance away will tend to make things look a little bit more normal the way we perceive them. So you can use this to your advantage. So again, if you get your pencil, don't stick it in your eye, but if you get very close, like the end of it, don't put the pointy end in, you can see a little bit of perspective. But you bring it out there, you don't see the perspective as much. So foreshortening does have a bit to do with perspectives. How do you draw foreshortening? I've got a nice foreshortening challenge there for people to draw, because in almost every angle there's at least somebody's going to have to do a bit of foreshortening. When we do life drawing, you're always going to come across foreshortening. It's always going to happen. And the other good practice that you can do is get your fingers and get your left hand, or if you're left-handed, your right hand, and look at your hand like that and try and draw it with your fingertips pointing to your eyes. That's a foreshortening draw challenge. So the way to do it, we have a eraser here. Right, so it's one of these things that unless you're actually where I actually am, you're not going to see this foreshortening the same as I am. Same as you go around the room, everybody's going to see this foreshortening a little bit different. If I was looking at the leg, for example,
Sorry, good night.
that's okay. Find a spot. So the legs of that model from where I am are a bit like this. Because I'm looking at a bit of an angle, one looks a little bit longer than the other. So this one here, which is a bit further away, looks a bit longer. This one looks a bit shorter. So how do you get that accurate? Okay, first of all, you are distracted by the fact that what you're doing is a human body. And straight away you have to think in your head, well, it has to look like a human body. One trick is to not see it as a human body, which is nice actually a mannequin, but see it as a bunch of shapes. A bunch of abstract shapes. If you can see it like a landscape or a bunch of abstract shapes, that's one way of overcoming the problems you're seeing when you're trying to represent something. Because you'll try and represent it, and like I say, it's a distraction. The biggest one is drawing portraits. The eyes, the face, everything is such a distraction that you're so concerned about getting everything right that you miss out on seeing the shape, the form, the tones. So that's one way of doing it. I'm going to give you a few ways of doing this. One way is to look at it as a bunch of abstract shapes and just draw the abstract shapes that you see. Because if you can divorce your mind from the fact that you're trying to represent a human body of some sort, well, that means that you're more likely to get the shapes right. Okay, next is measuring. So the artist doing that with their thumb, or you can do it with your pencil. You can. And to do this, it's always best done at arm's length. So it's best to sit on one of the donkeys, get on one of the easels, or stand up at your table. So what you can do is you get there and sort of say, okay, that foot is about there. So do it with this hand. Foot is about there. So I get there and I sort of draw it roughly there. And then the leg is about there. And the other leg is about there. You're sort of marking off on your pencil. You mark it off there. You can do it like that. You can do it like this. If you want to make it bigger, you just have to sort of like try and get that arm bend the same each time. You can sort of, one of the ways of doing that is you put your arm out like this to do the measurement there. Then you get your elbow and hit your body like that. and do it there to get on the page. That is enlarging. So you're measuring. Everything is measured. While you're doing the measuring, the next is angles. Looking at the angles. So if I'm looking at that leg there, I usually go, okay, it's a right angle, or it's 180. So because it's on that angle, I go 180 and like that, and it's that angle there. So you can put that angle there, move that all over the place. As long as you can do that, that gets the angles right. So you've got the measurements and you've got the angles right, and you're putting down all these guidelines. It's going to be pretty accurate. So when it comes to foreshortening, measuring is a really good way of hitting the foreshortening. The next thing is the negative space, the space around the object. Like I said before, we get so worked up on trying to get that object that we forget about the space around it. And if you draw the space around, which is an abstract shape, that shape will define or get you more accurate the shape inside that space. So the space around the object, especially if limbs cross over and they form a shape there. If somebody's doing that, you've got like a triangle shape. They're all great ways of correcting. So when you've done all these very gentle guidelines, you've measured, you've checked angles, you've checked out the negative space, you looked at, you just use a whole swag of them and see which ones work best for you. That's when you can sort of get there and you can work in more detail. Now, another thing which I haven't really spoken about, but we're going to cover it in another lesson, and it's the contour lines. When you use the word contour in an art sense, there's two schools of thought on contour. What does contour mean? It means the outside line or the surface line. So some people will say the contour means, you know, the actual outline. Others will say no, it means the surface shape. I like to use it in the terms of the surface shape because that helps define. So if I am doing what I call contour shading here, I'm not going to, I'm not going to shade like this. Rather, I'm going to shade like this. So if I'm going to do my shading like this, I'm following the contours of this figure, and what I'm doing now is I am describing the figure better. By that shading. Some people sort of smooth their shading really smooth and then you don't get this, but if you sort of cross-hatch, or even if you're cross-hatching, you can still cross-hatch in a way that curves around the cylinder or the legs or whatever you're trying to draw, and that's going to describe it so much better, and that's going to help you with your art. Okay, any questions? We all took that